Hello, it's me, Burnett Brochacho, or that one guy who doesn't show about Cleopatra in space. And if you don't like me talking about Cleopatra in space, you're probably going to want to go watch a different video, because this video is all about that. As the title and thumbnail suggest, I'm going to be ranking every single Cleopatra in space book subjectively. I say subjectively because everybody has different opinions. Now, before I go into the ranking, I want to establish that I'm going to be talking about the books. A lot of people who know Cleopatra in space are probably primarily familiar with the TV show that came out more recently. Now, I don't think I need to tell you that the TV show and the books are incredibly different. They barely follow the same plot line. And just everything's different in them, so just throw all your knowledge of the show out the window and you'll probably won't be as confused. I'd also like to put a very heavy spoiler warning in here for all 6 books. I'm going to be going into detail on each one of them as I discuss them. And you have been warned. If you keep watching and haven't read the books, just go read them and then get back to this video. It'll make more sense then. Got all that? Cool. Let's begin. Oh, and one last thing I'd like to point out before we get into the ranking. I know I said we would just start with now, but I have to point this out. Every single book in the series is at least an 8 out of 10. All of them are good. Just because your favorite book is lower on the ranking doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means it's not as good as the other ones. Which, in what we're going to get to, you're going to see isn't exactly a very low bar. It's a very high bar to reach to be better than some of these books. Now let's get into the ranking proper. The first 2 on the list, the bottom 2, are the first 2 books. Book 1 covers Cleopatra's getting into space when she comes into contact with the time tablets. It sets up the world. It has Cleopatra fight a bunch of robot mummies, and it also introduces us to Gozi, Brian, Aquila, Kensu, Kefra, basically every important character for the rest of the series except for 2, maybe 3. It also sets up the threat of Octavian and the goal of the series. Cleopatra fulfills the prophecy to stop Octavian. Book 2 involves Cleopatra chasing down a thief called Antony at the beginning of the book, who's another important character, who stole a sword that supposedly makes Octavian immortal. It's later revealed that the sword is a fake, and Octavian destroys it because he already has the real sword, as revealed later. It also begins Cleopatra's search for the time tablets, which is a plot point for the next book as well. And they go to Hycosis, and we leave off when Octavian tracks them outside of Hycosis. So it ends on a cliffhanger. Now, these are very respectable books. However, they do run into the issue of they're the first books in the series and have a lot of exposition. The story is still just getting going, so it's kind of a slow start. Also, the art isn't fully developed yet. Let's say you take a page from book 2 and then you put an extra page from book 4. The art is way better in book 4. Or with book 1 and book 6, the art is way better. This isn't a huge issue, but I really have to come down to nitpicks to get these books that low, to get books lower than others. So I'm just going to take what I can get. Moving on to the next book on the ranking. And ironically, the next book on the ranking is book 4, which used to be my favorite book in the series until I took a deeper look at the next books. This book basically tells the story of Cleopatra when she goes to the planet of Ka-Adun to find the Golden Lion, which is a star of immeasurable power that supposedly holds the secret to defeating Octavian and was last seen over 900 years ago. She goes alone, but ends up teaming up with Antony when she gets to the planet, where they're completely cut off from all communication, and they fight a jackal-like bounty hunter underground next to this buried star called the Golden Lion, with the intent on keeping it safe from Octavian. Although Antony also has the ulterior motive of stealing a tiny chunk, but to give to Octavian later because he's that kind of guy. This gives the first hints of romance between Cleopatra and Antony, which is partially a historical reference and just partially something that's destined to happen in the book series, which kind of ties into one of my biggest problems with the show, considering that's literally what's destined to happen and they just completely overwrite that for 2 other people. Another thing that this book has is it truly introduces us to Cleopatra's laser sword, which is more like a bow staff than an actual sword, which is cool. The art is probably some of the best in the series in this book, in my opinion. Better than book 5, in my opinion, and better than maybe... Actually, no, it's just better than book 5, book 1, and book 3. I mean, not book 3, book 2, book 1, book 5. It's better than those ones. It also probably has the best character designs in the series, just because it has all the redesigns. And with the exception of one, it has the best looks for Cleopatra, it has some of the better looks for Antony, and it has the best look for Aquila, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it does run a few issues. For one, most of the side characters don't get a lot of screen time, except for Cleopatra and Antony. Nobody else really gets screen time. Panel time, I suppose. Octavian doesn't get to do a whole lot, other than just bow to Anubis at the beginning and have a bomb off in his face at the end. That's literally all he does in the entire book, which is a real shame because of how much happened to him in the last book. But it's still a very good book. It's got amazing action sequences, probably some of the better in the series, just in terms of paneling and how they look. And it has probably one of the most important items in the entire verse, which is, in fact, the Golden Lion, which we hear a lot about in the next two books. And I think we heard some of it in some of the earlier books too. I'll have to go back and check that. Moving on. And now we get to the second half of the series. And this book, ranking these is really a coin toss. They're all extremely good 10 out of 10 books in my opinion. Some of them are better than others in regards, but make up for others. So I'm just going to break all three of them down, and I'm going to leave the ranking up to you, and I'm going to give some pros and cons of each one. Actually, just pros. I can't really think of any major cons. First is Book 3. I think this was called something like the Time Tablets, or The Secret of the Time Tablets. That's right. Book 3 tells the story of Cleopatra and her friends landing on Nicosis, and running into Antony and teaming up with him in order to find the Time Tablets and take them from Octavian. They end up being split up, and eventually Kensu and Zaid, who was a major character in Book 1 and one of Cleopatra's friends, get captured by Octavian where the Time Tablets was located, and Cleo, Antony, and Aquila try to attack him. However, this goes badly. Aquila gets permanently injured. Antony nearly dies. Zaid gets disintegrated by Octavian, trying to save Cleo from an energy blast. And basically everybody just gets numbers done on them. Then Octavian basically just throws Cleo around for a bit until he tricks her into accidentally touching the time tablets, sending her back through space-time. And he's like thinking, okay, yeah, she's definitely gone. There's no way she can come back from that. She's in a completely different timeline, a completely different planet. But nope, she just pops back into existence. And her hands are glowing for some reason. We've never seen this happen to her before. It was kind of teased earlier in the book, but we don't really know what it was. And she just shoots a laser beam at him for some reason, somehow. And it launches him into space. But in an instant, he's in space. He's in the asteroid belt. He's just looking down the planet, like, what the hell just happened? Then Cleo backs out and everything goes back to normal. And they go back home. Zaid's dead. That's probably... Okay, Zaid dying is probably one of the biggest, most impactful parts of the series, which is like, it's like, we hadn't seen a major character dive into that point, and it's like, Octavian just casually murdered one of the major characters in the series so far. Which, yeah, that's kind of rough. I don't really think there's any major criticisms of this book other than the major tonal shift between like the first half and the second half. Also, Kensu and Zaid's death tease at the very beginning is kind of wonky, but that's like the most criticism I can give this. I really like also how they set up Cleopatra's connection to the time tablets and how like her destiny was pre-planned by Pyramid. Just like, okay, yeah, we know she's gonna come here exactly, and like they always had a way to send her back, but they never did, which kind of adds layers to it. But in the end, I still think that this book isn't definitively number one. It is a very good book though. Probably my second favorite in the series, but that's really just between this one and the next one. The next book to discuss is the Fallen Empires book. Now this book probably is the best opening out of any Cleopatra space book in my opinion, and it opens with Octavian's backstory. Because I failed to mention this when I was talking about book 3, but we learned that Octavian was Gozi, Cleopatra's childhood friend that she had right next to her when she got sent to the future back in Egypt, and he blamed her for his life being ruined. Because when she got sent into the future, he got touched by the sword of Kebchet, which meant Anubis could corrupt his soul, and that made him immortal. And he should have died several times across the course of his thousands of years of life between now and then, but he didn't, and was just forced to live in pain. He had families, he had all kinds of families and like people that he trusted and loved, but they all were killed, and there's nothing he could do to save them, and he was left alive through all of that. it's a really heartbreaking backstory, especially for Octavian, that I did not expect coming. It's a total emotional gut punch if you were going in just thinking he's some mindless villain, or it's like, oh, he's just angry that Cleopatra left him, as you would think after book 3. It does a nice job building the depth of the character, and it's probably the book's biggest pro. Then the next part of the book goes on to, we learn that Cleopatra's having trouble controlling her powers when she accidentally blasts another cadet. He isn't injured or anything. But then later she gets framed for murdering one of the counselor cats. Oh yeah, there were counselor cats in case you didn't know. This one's name was Talabath. He died. She gets blamed for it, and she ends up becoming a fugitive with Aquila. So they make a plan to try to root out what's really happening with Pharaoh Osiris, but they get captured in the process of trying to execute their plan and get locked up. The Osiris reveals that, oh yeah, guess what? Kefra is actually the villain here. Kefra's the head council cat, and Kensu's mom, because yes. Just like, hey, this is what's happening. This is the evil person. So Kefra gets locked up, and then Octavian begins to attack the base that they were fighting at. Just begins to attack the city, and Pyramid's trying to send a fleet to fight him while Cleopatra sneaks onto his ship and tries to disable his big plasma weapon, which is made using a piece of the golden lion that he got earlier. She does destroy it, but it's revealed he has a second one, and he just nukes the planet, killing untold thousands of people, most likely. And then he basically beats the crap out of Cleopatra, bathes her in star plasma, shoots her, crushes her crown, shoots her out of an airlock, and then just leaves her to die. She survives and is caught by Kensu, because a bunch of the pyramid people escaped on survival ships, and most of the people didn't die, but still a bunch of people did. And it leaves on a real somber note, because like this is the first book where like the hero's actually lost and Octavian has won. He's destroyed his biggest enemy for the time being. And this is completely totally different than any other book's ending. Even the more somber parts of book 3 or book 4 don't hold a candle to this. And I think that's really awesome. I don't remember if there's anything else major that happens in this book. I just think that there's no real problem with this book. It's really good. I'm not a huge fan of certain parts of it, but that's just my personal preference. But they're still really good. This is easily number 2. Now that I've talked about it a little bit more, I think this is actually better than book 3. But of course, the normal spot has to go. And of course, the best book in the series is the finale, Book 6, Queen of the Nile. Now this book begins with everybody on Khadun again, where the Golden Lion is still resting, where they're on a mission to destroy it. Cleopatra fights her way through an army of Xerxes with some support, and jumps into the Golden Lion, jumps into a freaking star, and pops it like a balloon. Just jumps to a star and destroys it. Now, I know that's not terribly plot relevant other than the fact that it's just destroyed the Golden Lion, which is where Octavian begins his weapon. But I do like the fact that this gets my versus debater, power scaler, nerd senses going. Just yes, let's go. Feats are awesome. Moving on. Then, after they destroy it, Admiral Hazelrig, who has been a minor character throughout most of the series so far, sacrifices his life to let Cleopatra escape the crumbling planet, and they get away. Hazelrig's gone. Oh yeah, also Professor Jabal, he was a minor character in book 1. He also dies during this scene. So there's still stakes going. And Octavian shows up, they leave the planet, and they get away. And they eventually go to this oasis, where Brian has made an artificial, oasis on a destroyed planet that they can hide out from Octavian in a cloaked place where they're just completely hidden. However, it is still revealed that Antony shows up, and he has this book called the Saba. The Saba was written by Bakari, Cleopatra's teacher from the past, who made it to teach her and Osiris how to rule how to be a queen, how to save the galaxy. And basically, he also wrote the prophecies, sort of, not entirely. It's also we see Antony's dying, sort of, but he comes back because he got injured by Octavian, I think. We also see that Fod Franzi's back. Remember him? He was in book 3. Cleopatra shot his hat. Yeah, he's back now. He's causing problems. But before Cleopatra can stop anything that's going on, she actually gets zapped to another universe called the Duat. The Duat is a realm where the gods live. specifically in this universe, is where Thoth went after Anubis bodied him and killed him. This is where he went to let his soul recover. And he's slowly dying, so are all the other gods. And this is where we get a bunch of exposition about Cleopatra and why she's so strong. We learn that she got her powers from Anubis, because her mother and her entire bloodline was descended from Anubis. At least Anubis' daughter. So they have a piece of his soul charging them. We also learned that the sword of Kebchet is also made up of Anubis' soul, so that's why Octavian is so strong. We also learn why all the gods are dead, because Anubis killed them. We also learned that the Golden Lion was actually Ra, cloaked and hiding out on Khadun because he was nearly killed by Anubis. Now, with that out of the way, after that, Cleopatra gets sent back with Antony and Brian just to discover the fact that Octavian has showed up on the planet and he's just destroying everything in his way. Yozira couldn't stop him. Oh yeah, she apparently is Cleopatra's descendant, and she has her powers too, just to a lesser degree. She can't stop Octavian. The entire Pyramid army can't stop Octavian. No one can stop him. He's just wiping out everything. So basically, she starts throwing hands with Octavian. Their fight takes up most of the back half of the book. And basically, everybody piles on once she starts pushing him back, but they still can't put him down. They even have Aquila, sacrifice her robotic arm that she got after book 3 to, bathe him in pure energy of the Golden Lion, which can supposedly stop him. But even that doesn't work, and he's only ever put down. Cleopatra stabs him with the sword of Kebchet, which finally rids his body and soul of all the suffering he's gotten over the last several thousand years, and he is killed. However, then the soul of Anubis tries to corrupt Cleopatra, and she nearly destroys the entire universe when she is just corrupted by him, until Yozira flies up to her, and they together one-shot Anubis, destroying his soul for all eternity. Now, I could go on about how beautiful the art in this book is, how well all the storylines just tie together and close out. I could talk about how awesome some of the character designs are. I could talk about how well the story is paced. I could talk about how all the jokes land. I have so many callbacks. But I'm not going to. You know why? Because I think you guys should just read this book yourself. If you've made it all the way in this video and you still haven't read Cleopatra Space, shame on you. Go read it. It is well worth it, even though I just spoiled the entire series. Please. Well, in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I plan to make more Cleopatra Space content in the future. Probably gonna take a break from Death Battle videos for a while. Maybe I'll make a couple for upcoming season 9 stuff, but probably not. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe. I know I'm begging still, but just come on, just a couple more subscribers, please. That'd be nice. Just leave a comment what you would like me to talk about next. And for the love of God, go read Cleopatra Space. Thank you.